Let's go. Let's hit it.
Have you ever been watching a movie or a TV show or soaking up the plot of a game and then felt yourself grow genuinely worried about the characters? Maybe someone might not make it, or there's some terrible lingering truth over the narrative and you don't know how they'll get out of this situation. And you're
So right away, I'm thinking about if there was ever a character that I was genuinely worried for. And it's kind of hard for me to say because I got kind of detached from fictional characters early in my video game playing career. But I definitely remember in Planescape Torment, there's one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, Dakon, a Githzerai. I was definitely worried about him. And that the way that game plays and how it structures the narrative, I was not worried for him so that the story would kill him, like in a Japanese game, because those tend to be linear and set in stone. But I was worried for him because also my character, the main character in the game, has bad history with him that you don't know about. It's pretty complicated. I don't really want to get into it right now. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I was worried for him, and I was also worried that he might try to take a grudge from before out, and then I would have no choice but to, handle it or something. It's pretty specific, but yeah, that is definitely a character I was. If something happened to him, I would have been super pissed and upset. But I'm trying to think if there was a character that I was genuinely sad about dying or something. I don't really think that's the case. You guys ever got that anywhere?
You're in that shit. You're invested. Suddenly you're 8 years old and nothing in your life has been as important as this story beat. Then you blink and remember that that's exactly what this is. A story beat, a portion of this particular fiction that was crafted by humans to shift the tone of the narrative.
See, this is why I like Daryl. You know what this is? What this movie is from? This is The Prestige by Christopher Nolan.
You remember that the only reason this conflict exists is to make the eventual resolution feel that much more thrilling. And maybe
this is definitely a good point because the more I know about fiction and how it's done, how it's designed, and written, the harder it is to really get immersed into what's happening and get invested. So whenever it does happen, they're doing something really special. Or I guess it's definitely a collaborative effort because the writing needs to be good, or at least it needs to be your kind of vibe. It can be bad, but if you like it, then that's all that matters. And you also have to do some heavy lifting, right? You need to allow to be immersed. Because if you go into a horror game thinking, I'm not gonna get scared, what the fuck? Then you're gonna have a hard time getting scared, right? Obviously. And I think the same goes for a quality of the story.
for a moment you take solace in that. Okay, everything really will turn.
So I don't think Meta is here, but was I right? Are you guys similar? Because I swear, I saw your photo from 3-4 years ago, and I was like, wait, is this Meta? What the fuck? I might be wrong though.
Because it always does, but then you look down and you're not a kid anymore. You know that these are actors, this is CGI, he isn't really in pain, and this is just a disc in your PlayStation.
Okay, Last of Us is a good example. Like, I was not really worried about the characters, but I was completely invested in what's gonna happen. I was really into it. Like, every struggle they went through, Joel and Ellie, I was like, holy shit, I fucking want them to get through this. I was rooting for them really hard. So, I guess that's the distinction for me. I'm not really worried about characters because, they're fictional characters, so I don't, what the fuck. But I can definitely get invested in them and hope that they get through everything and they can do the thing,
And obviously,
and I can definitely also hate characters, like villains that fucking you are supposed to hate. Those are the best. They really make you hate their guts, and the eventual confrontation with them feels so juicy. Okay, I just remembered. There are a few characters that are super important to me, and that's Legacy of Kain, Kain and Raziel. Oh yeah, that is such a good example because I like both of them, and they are irreconcilable. They are antagonistic towards each other, even though Kain tries to like win Raziel over in defiance, but Raziel just doesn't want to hear it. And I want them to I want them to hash it out. I want them to come together for a common foe, but it's not possible, and it's like, oh my god, fuck. That's some good shit.
All of these things are true, right? Like, of course, as humans with functioning brains, we can all healthily accept that this is not real. The reason kids can view stories with this level of reckless abandon is because they are still learning how to separate the real world from fiction, and they haven't seen a dozen other stories just like it before. Cool. But how
The point about seeing dozen stories like it before, man, that hits so hard for me. Once you've played enough games, once you've seen enough movies, once you've read enough books, it's gonna take some heavy lifting for a new thing to be, or for the next thing rather, to really speak to you the way the ones before did.
How do we prevent this from happening? Should we prevent this from happening, or is it just part of the experience now as a bitter, tired adult? And better yet, am
I need
the
to watch
one that does
Fear
this? Like sometimes I feel like I can't just enjoy media anymore without instantly analyzing every little thing on screen. Maybe it's a byproduct of being a YouTuber since I'm always looking for something.
Analyzing everything, there's nothing wrong with that, because that allows you to appreciate the thing so much more. It also allows you to criticize the thing so much more, so that's, but yeah, I'm a big fan.
To write about, but regardless, it drives me crazy. So I asked you guys.
When you're playing a game or watching a movie show, roughly what percentage of your time with it would you say you're analyzing it versus just consuming it? Oh. I wonder if people are able to assess this like accurately. Because for me, these things run in tandem. This is not like, okay, now I'm analyzing. Okay, now I'm consuming. No, it's running in real time at the same time. So I'm doing both at 100%. Kind of. The most common answer here is 40% analyzing, 60% consuming. I think this is impossible to really assess, I think. For me, at least.
Guys about this in a poll a while back, and maybe I'm not alone. We'll circle back to that in a sec. Today, I want to talk about the two ways we consume media, the wide-eyed, slack-jawed, suspended disbelief kind, and the critical, pick it apart, and appreciate / shit on the tiny things kind. And maybe pick it
I want to hear that again.
Wide-eyed, slack-jawed, suspended disbelief kind.
I want to hear that again. Suspended disbelief kind, and then...
And the critical, pick it apart, and appreciate / shit on the tiny things kind.
Shit on the tiny things guy.
And maybe something beautiful that happens when a story uses one to bolster the other. I want to understand why for so many of us, we simply must analyze when we consume media, why in some cases it feels like we're consuming it wrong, why we struggle to just let it be what it is at face value, why it's so hard to be worked.
World of Warcraft is the perfect example where you really don't want to analyze it. They are making that shit up as they go, and it's so painfully obvious. The less you think about it, the better the story is. If you think about it for 2 seconds, you're gonna run into trouble. Because I can consume more than analyze, like a second playthrough is one where I take more things slow and analyze what's going on. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
That's a term that'll become relevant later. But real quick, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Imagine this. You open your fridge and there's a bottle of mustard and some expired milk. It's time to go to the grocery store. But instead of making that grating little trip, you hear a knock at your door and your food for the week has been delivered to you. You see, with Factor, have you ever been watching a movie or a TV show or soaking up the plot of a game exactly?
Okay, I can't use...
If it's what you can tell these meals...
I can't use freaking soundboard on this.
ready to clean up all of that
I don't want to skip
tomfoolery
his
off of your list
sponsor.
and enjoy a rich variety of over 35 weekly ready-to-eat meals. Meals that meet your preferences, your lifestyle,
Jalapeno.
whether that be calorie smart, vegan and
Americans cannot pronounce jalapeno. It's pretty funny to me. Because they don't, like, English doesn't have the h sound. We talked about this before, but, you know, that's just something I like to point out.
Veggie Protein Plus, and not just for dinner. With over 55 add-ons to choose from, you can grab quick breakfast items, grab-and-go snacks, ready-to-drink cold-pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. This cold brew latte
tasty.
protein shake is divine. Should I start drinking coffee? I know I finished the backlog last month, but being able to just grab something out of the fridge that is both ready in 2 minutes and tastes freshly cooked is mind-boggling to me, and it helps me get back to what I'd like to actually be doing instead of cooking for almost an hour. And you can tell these meals are never frozen. It feels like they just meal prepped for you and immediately shipped them all ready for you to eat, which is exactly what I need these days. If it's what you need, then head to Factor 75, which is exactly what I need these days.
He's doing the meme, and he's doing pretty well. I'm trying to see what books does he have here. Don't think I'm familiar with any of these.
If it's what you need, then head to factor75.com or click the link below and use Daryl Talks 50 to get 50% off your first
Nice sponsor.
Factor box. You might remember me working with HelloFresh earlier this year, and funny enough, Factor is now owned by HelloFresh.
Oh,
both
interesting.
of which are extraordinary. Together, there's something for everyone. So once again, don't miss out.
There's something
It's
for everybody.
factor75.com or click the link below and use Daryl Talks
Is he
50
drinking? Looks
to
like
get
raw
50%
egg.
off your first Factor
What's wrong with the raw
box.
egg?
With that
You don't
said,
drink raw
let's
eggs?
dive right back into trying not to overanalyze your consumption of media. But first, we need to acknowledge that there is a certain level of analysis that must happen when we absorb anything, right? We don't just not think when we watch. Great entertainment rewards you for noticing the details.
I definitely think non-stop. The only time I don't think, let's just continue the video.
And for trying to comprehend the subtleties presented. Foreshadowing works because we're smart enough to know something isn't right, which later creates a payoff in the form of a plot twist. The reason the I am your father scene lands so hard isn't just because it's unexpected, it is a moment built upon the little things, like Alec Guinness's haunted reaction when Luke asks Obi-Wan about his father. A good game rewards you for showing a thorough understanding and mastery of the mechanics. In Souls games, it's satisfying to see your stats go up and you spend souls, but it's even more satisfying when you get a knack for the combat and figure out how to beat whatever you're stuck on. You can never
I'm not currently following where is this going. Gotta say.
fully turn your brain off. So to be clear,
Oh yeah, okay. You can never fully turn your brain off. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like this only supports my view that you don't not think when you watch or play something. Yeah, I don't think so.
what we're talking about here is analyzing something so deep that it breaks your immersion with it. I'm talking being so stuck on a puzzle in a game that you stop experimenting and say, okay, what do the developers want me to?
I think about this all the fucking time. Whenever boss does some stupid ass bullshit, I'm like, who thought this was a good idea? This shockwave, this hitbox, this kind of telegraph, like what the fuck? This amount of frames for startup, like dude, what the hell? But you know what? I don't think this takes away from my experience at all. Like I don't think about this in this way at all. For me, it enhances my understanding of the game, and I feel like I get better at the game much more quickly because I know how games are designed usually, or like what is the general idea, what is the aim of the developer, probably, and all that stuff. So being cognizant of all these things, being aware of all these things, allows me to more quickly understand what is being asked of me. And I guess that also kind of informs the fact that I don't really hate any game. I also don't really dislike any games that I've played anyway, because I always find the good in them because of this. I'm aware, like, what is being asked of me. When somebody says that, like, this is a strawman, complete strawman, let's just hypothetical. Somebody says Neo is a bad Souls game, and what they really mean is it doesn't play like Souls game. I try to play it like a Souls game and it doesn't work. Well, that's because it's a different game. You gotta play it by its rules, not by the rules of Dark Souls. So, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm. That's kind of my train of thought here. Be analyzing like this and being aware really helps you understand way quicker because you kind of allow the game to just show you and teach you, and you accept it. You're not putting roadblocks in there.
To notice. I'm talking watching a scene like this in an anime and then thinking, yeah, I don't think they had enough time or budget to animate this part like they wanted. I'm talking being that obnoxious friend that points out that Leonardo DiCaprio genuinely cut his hand in this scene and just rolled with it. And then thinking about how all of the other actors must have reacted once the director said cut instead of, just watching the movie. And frankly, I think the reason some of us struggle with this is because we are all experts. We've all seen this movie before, over and over and over. We've all watched a video about our favorite game. We've all
Not only are we all experts on what we consume, but we are most importantly experts in what we like and why we like it. So also, like, that again goes back to your approach to how you consume things. You know best how to do this. So I definitely agree. We are all experts.
seen hot takes on
Although I think his point here is gonna be that everybody has an opinion, right? So we actually talked about this earlier in the stream. The Sonic franchise is only alive because of nostalgia, and no modern Sonic game plays well enough to actually be enjoyable. See, I think this guy might be right, in the sense that I agree, but I have not played any modern Sonic game, because none of them look like they would be fun to me. None of them appeal to me at all. So I just don't even try them, because it doesn't make sense. But I wouldn't go and say, hey, this thing you like, this thing that a lot of people bought and played and enjoy and bought sequels and shit, I'm gonna go and say, hey, this game sucks. Did you know that? What? Like, you're not the arbiter of somebody else's enjoyment of anything. No modern Sonic game plays well enough, according to whom, right? That's the counter there.
on Twitter and then come up with an even hotter one. After we consume any piece of
This is why I like Daryl. He puts Evangelion in almost every single video I have seen. There is footage from Evangelion. So, he's got my back.
media, there is a fire hydrant of secondary content around it just waiting for you to go bathe in. You're bathing in some right now, but being an expert alone is not the problem. In fact, as many of you pointed out, it can actually make your time with the
I'm gonna read you first. It's one of the things I try to avoid is like try to make assumption of a Neo game is a Dark Souls game. These days, I definitely don't even say that it's a Souls-like. I don't think so. I think it's so different in terms of structure and gameplay that it's a different game. It's a third-person melee action game with a stamina-based system. The producer, Fumihiko Yasuda, calls it musclecore, which I think is, we talked about that before, if you remember. Musclecore. Completely different games, things I could ignore, but I don't really know how important it will be later down the line. Yeah, every new game you gotta approach like what it is. It's a new game. With a game like Baldur's Gate, it's hard not to think about how the developers and how they could have made and written so many different paths and conversations that can branch off into 1,000 different scenarios and change the entire game. So while consuming it, I'm also thinking about how impressive it is and the appreciation that I have something like this to consume. And this is also, I think, what I already mentioned. Being aware of these things allows you to understand the game and also appreciate it that much more. That's exactly what I mean. When I played Hades and I heard all those voice lines, I was like, what the fuck? I used an empowered, fully charged summon at the final fight with Hades. And whenever you summon a fully charged god, they have a little voice line, right? So I summoned Poseidon, and he always says like something like, I got you covered, little Hades, or something like that. He talks to Zagreus, right? And so I summon him in the final fight, and he says, oh, you want me to help you now? And Hades, old man, the father, is like, what did he say? Something along the lines of, why must you meddle in our affairs, cousin? Or something like that. They had a voice line bespoke for the final fight when you have a fully charged summon, and that also means they have voice lines for every other summon for that fight in that instance. That is genuinely freaking crazy. And Hades 2 is gonna be even better. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome.
The story that much more meaningful since you do have a deeper appreciation for it. What I want to avoid, and what I think many of you want to avoid, is this sudden mental evacuation from the story that comes from knowing too much about how it's made. Your immersion being broken because you can't unsee the smoke and mirrors that make this illusion work.
I think I'm a big proponent of immersion in video games. The thing is, whenever I break the immersion myself, I'm totally okay with it. The only problem is when the game or some element breaks the immersion for me. That is the only problem. So that's also interesting. I never really thought about this, how other people, what's other people's attitude towards immersion and how they deal with it. But this is definitely giving me a perspective that I never thought about, so that's interesting.
Psychologists have created a proper term for being truly engrossed in a story. They call it narrative transportation. And studies on this have revealed a few things. In one 2015 article, researchers had participants watch a 20-minute film and be sure to note how many times the word gun was used. In another group, they were asked the same thing, except the film was all out of order. The scenes were not shown chronologically. And interestingly,
so the other group was watching a Tarantino movie, basically.
When the film was shown in the correct order, subjects did significantly worse at noting every time the word gun was used. The hypothesis here being, when you're properly absorbed in a narrative, it becomes harder to focus on an external goal. Another study found
let me think about this.
the word gun was used. The hypothesis here being, when you're properly absorbed in a narrative, it becomes harder to focus on an external goal.
Harder to focus on an external goal. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I also wonder, now that I think about it, like a lot of the time I play games where I'm not getting absorbed, and I have like a podcast or a stream open on the second monitor. Like, what happens there? How much do I really miss by listening to something else and not putting my attention on the thing? But also, I'm thinking, if I ever had an external goal while playing a single player game that I'm trying to be absorbed in, what kind of external goal could I possibly have? I don't think I ever even tried this. No, actually, I guess taking screenshots with like intentionally, with the intent, that would be an external goal. And there are definitely games where I forget to do that. But like Elden Ring, I was extremely immersed and extremely absorbed, and I definitely did not forget to take screenshots because that game is full of opportunities that are like, oh shit, this is a fucking wallpaper. Let's take a screenshot. I have like 300 screenshots from Elden Ring playthrough. Hey, what's up, Meta? Have you missed much? I've done some Warcraft stuff, so yeah, you missed a little bit, but nothing too major, I don't think. Would being hungry be considered external goal? Well, are you hungry or is somebody else hungry? Are you supposed to cook for somebody else? Then it would be external, but But I mean, I get what you mean. Like being hungry. Okay, if you're saying being absorbed in a game makes you forget about being hungry, and it makes that sense much less intense, to a degree where you even don't need to eat for an entire day, I definitely know that feeling. Would you eat more if you watched the movie out of order? They need to make a new experiment.
Another study found that when participants were distracted from the story and experienced less narrative transportation, it led to reduced story-consistent beliefs and evaluations.
Reduced story-consistent beliefs and evaluations. I need to think about what that actually means. Does that mean that they didn't understand why the story is happening the way it is. Is that what this means? And why characters are behaving the way they are? Because, man, I have seen this so many times online. People talking shit about Edelgard in Three Houses, completely misunderstanding what she is about. And I suspect it's because they were not paying attention. I could see this happening very easily. Their idea of what was going on wasn't entirely accurate, is what I'm getting. Yeah. Yeah, that is also my interpretation of this.
The takeaways here are twofold. When you're truly immersed in a work of fiction, it's harder to pick it apart, and when you're distracted, it's hard to buy into.
If you're really into it, it's harder to pick it apart. And if you're distracted,
Your eye to pick it apart, and when you're distracted, it's hard to buy into.
It's really just a fucking curtain. I don't know what this reference is, but it sounds funny.
You're either
Speaking of Three Houses, Daryl got my back once again.
really in it or almost completely out of it. It's tough to do both at once, which is why
The first playthrough is for immersion in the story. I think that's it. Rain, is this you? And the second one is for understanding and appreciating. See, man, I can do both at once. Okay, it's not a big deal. It's just what I do. Okay, it's fine. You don't need to clap. It's alright. It's okay. It's okay. It's just normal. It's normal to me. Playing through a game blind allows you to just learn and experiment. Isn't that understanding? That's literally you're trying to understand the game. If you're learning and experimenting. Come on, man. Come on. Define your stuff correctly. Figuring out the story in real time. Playing a second time allows you to appreciate the small details and foreshadowing. These two sentences are talking about different things, but I think I get the point.
why a lot of you commented on that poll that your first viewing or playthrough is typically the one where you consume, and the second and third ones are the ones where you
I love shutting my game design brain off, truly enjoying a game, and then coming back later to analyze the game if there was something in particular I liked about it. I think this is gonna be most people for sure. This is very reasonable. I think enjoying the game is a very important step to analyzing it. You have to feel the emotions before you are able to analyze them properly. I think it's going to be most people, but I really feel like I can do these things at the same time and it doesn't detract from each other. It doesn't detract from my analysis and it doesn't detract from my enjoyment.
go back.
But I think that's also because all I do is playing video games and thinking about them. That is literally what I try to do every day. And that is all I want to do. Nothing else really is that interesting to me. Nothing else is quite as compelling. I do other things, obviously. Like every human, like, you can't do just one thing over and over forever and that's it. I do other things too, but this is the thing I care about the most. I would say like this.
And soak up all of the details, all of the things you didn't notice before. A lot of you also mentioned that you do most.
This is a hard question to answer for me because in general I tend to be 80% consuming and engrossed in the game while actually playing it. And I often find that if I'm evaluating it too critically past a certain point, it's failed to grip me entirely. That's a good point too. Like if you're being critical all the time, that probably means that your suspension of disbelief is just not there. But after I stop playing, when my mind lingers on the game, that's when all of the analysis and deeper appreciation happens. Yeah, but how accurate is that appreciation analysis gonna be when it's not in front of you, right? You're sourcing this stuff on your memory, and human memory, as we know, is not very good.
Most of your mental processing after the fact, between play sessions, between episodes, and that fits. Again, the evidence supports that it's tough to be transported at the same time.
FF13, Daryl got my back.
You're critiquing. It's like trying to drink a soda and talk about how it tastes at the same time, which is kind of why it's a problem if our minds slip into analytical mode during a story and all at once realize that it's outside of the story now. The shift between the consuming and the analyzing is the issue here, it seems. Of course, it's a beautiful thing to be able to celebrate a work of art on two levels, right? The narrative and the craftsmanship. To be able to appreciate the quality of the animation in Jujutsu Kaisen despite the piss-poor working conditions over at Mappa right now can in many ways make the story land even harder because you can see the passion behind the people that made it. But for some of us, it might also be tough for you to re-engage with that story when suddenly your mind won't stop honing in on the animation. You can appreciate art on multiple.
If we're talking about anime, and modern day anime at that, one of the latest, one of the last, or one of the newest anime that I watched in its entirety was Dragon Ball Super. Man, that shit was not good. I don't understand how can anybody like it's like Dragon Ball Super apologists. Like it's not that bad. Like you can't even say that. Like the best parts about Super were the flashbacks that were literally just taking scenes from Dragon Ball Z from the 90s. Those are the best parts of Super. The animation was completely atrocious. The plot mostly nonsensical. The new characters just complete garbage. Like what? They were not cool designs. They were not behaving cool. Their goals were not interesting. Just I just couldn't understand. Like I didn't get how could this happen. Genuinely. Like, the movies are good. The movies are definitely, even if the story is not great and the characters are kind of, not up to par for sure. At least the animation is pretty damn cool because it's a movie. It's a production. But a television anime, Dragon Ball Super, the very last 2 episodes have good animation that is genuinely exciting and really cool to watch, and you're into it. It's good music, everything's great. But that is 2 episodes out of 85, and that is not good enough for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too stringent or something, but it's just I could not vibe with it, man. The Tournament of Power was that should have been so much better than it was. And of course, there are still some good characters like Hit. Like the Hit's pretty cool, okay, but most of them is just this. Is this what people like these days? I guess it's not a surprise I don't really watch anime anymore. This commenter does not play Ease on Nightmare on their first playthrough. I can say that again.
Levels, but when you can't turn it off and you start talking about the soda as you're drinking it, that's when you choke. And there was one fan base in particular that can truly never turn it off.
A fandom that can never turn off their analysis brain. Okay, can I guess what this is? Fandom that is unable to turn off analysis brain. Like, if he's talking about wrestling, then that's out of my sphere. But if he's making a allegory to video game fandom, I think the most critical fandom that I know of, and I know that Daryl likes Japanese video games, I think that's gotta be Final Fantasy. It's very comparable to Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, and any other long-standing franchise. But I think Final Fantasy is probably the best example because one article that I always will cherish by GamesRadar.com when I was reading them and following their podcast back in 2010 there was an article that said every Final Fantasy game is simultaneously the best and the worst in the franchise. And the article was about why Final Fantasy 1 is the best and why Final Fantasy 1 is the worst. And so on and so forth until 13, right? At the time. And it's so freaking true. Every Final Fantasy is the best and worst at the same time. If you go into Twitch chat in any channel and you'll say, man, I love Final Fantasy 8, it's the best Final Fantasy, you have committed a grave sin of inciting Final Fantasy wars. That is, by my standards, that is an internet faux pas. You don't do that. You do not talk about what is your favorite Final Fantasy, and you definitely don't talk about what's the best Final Fantasy. You do not do that. That is a bad idea. because you will get opinions that are so stupid and so not thought out, so just asinine and so ignorant. It's crazy. And the worst part about them is they're all extremely valid. And they are based on large amount of truth as well. So it's extremely frustrating. Fighting games, I don't think so. Because fighting game is a genre, right?
7 is the best.
FF7 is the best. Disagree, but for me, it's an acceptable opinion to have. I think that's okay. But I don't think 7 is the best, personally. Actually, no Final Fantasy is the best, because all of them are the best. For me, every Final Fantasy is great. I like them all, so that is my struggle. Whenever somebody says, "Oh, this Final Fantasy sucks," or "This Final Fantasy is great," I'm like, why can't they both be great? I like them both. What the fuck? Anyway. With fighting games, I don't think that's really the case, because while you have long-standing franchises like King of Fighters and Street Fighter and Tekken, and they are also hyper-analyzed, they are only hyper-analyzed by the people who are like really playing them. The vast majority of mainstream enjoyers of these games do not think about frame data. They don't know what plus on block means. They don't know what's a cross up. They don't know how to break throws. They don't know the difference between a combo and a string. They don't know any of these things. So that's not the case. However, with Final Fantasy, everybody's a fucking goddamn expert, just like Daryl said previously. So I really think Final Fantasy, it's gonna be between Final Fantasy and Persona. I think one of these two. Also, it could be Nier, because Nier is basically designed to be analyzed. So the game kind of wants you to analyze it as much as possible. So these are my 3 guesses. Priority, number 1, Final Fantasy. Number 2, Persona. Number 3, Nier. These are my guesses that he's going to bring up. That's I think, what's going to be happening here.
Fan base that struggles to be worked. Imagine you flip on AEW Dynamite one
Okay, so he's going to talk about wrestling. Okay, that's fine.
evening. You don't know much about wrestling. You know it's fake.
But I think he should be able, and I think he wants to draw a parallel between wrestling and video games. So I think he's going to bring it around back to video games as well. But anytime he brings up wrestling, it's super solid example. So I'm all about it.
But you're bored and you've seen some clips online and it's fun in small doses, so why not? You don't know many of these wrestlers in the ring, but you recognize...
I know this guy. It's Kenny Omega, and I know him because he inserted himself into a lot of fighting game events, because he is a fan of fighting games, and he's a pretty solid commentator as well, turns out. So I like him, he's pretty cool.
Kenny Omega. You have an annoying friend that talks about how great he is, how he's back with the elite right now, and how he's a good guy again. Whatever. This match has a lot going on. Everyone here is ridiculously athletic, and it's fun to watch.
Damn.
A little invested, you turn up the volume, and then a chorus of boos fills the arena. I thought these were the good guys, you tell yourself. Shouldn't everyone be cheering? Why are they cheering the bad guys? You text your annoying friend. Oh, it's because they're in Chicago. Well, why would Chicago specifically be booing these 3? Oh, it's because Chicago is obsessed with CM Punk. Well, why would that matter? Oh, it's because there was a lawsuit involving a backstage real-life fight between the Elite and CM Punk. Well, why did that happen? Oh, it's because CM Punk broke character in a press conference to absolutely shit on them all and in no uncertain terms denounce their legitimacy as contributors to the wrestling business. Wait, but this isn't fake? This was a real-life altercation? But why would he say all that?
So this is definitely a case of outside influences messing up with the immersion of the act, let's say. But it's interesting because this is wrestling, right? So wrestling is all about beefing between the wrestlers. So this is a real beef. The problem is that it's real. The beef is supposed to be fake. That's kind of funny to me. The crowd is metagaming. Yeah.
That is a long story, but isn't it so much more interesting than this random Wednesday night match?
I promise I'm going somewhere with this. Just give me a second.
You see, wrestling is a strange form of entertainment because it is an athletic act put on by
see
two
what you're putting
parties
down,
that
Daryl.
pretend to hate each other in order to sell drama.
See, that's what I'm saying. The problem is that drama is real. It's supposed to be fake.
These two are actually friends, much like these two are actually friends, but on screen, in the narrative, they play a part. They are working. Now, most of us know that wrestling is all an act nowadays, but back before this was common knowledge, this act had to span into the real world. People didn't know that this was all pretend.
Was that
so
Jerry
wrestlers
Lawler?
worked even when they were not on the clock. Good guys and bad guys were never to be seen together in public. For a time, Santa Claus was real, and the fans believed what they saw on TV for years. However, as the internet introduced itself, bad guys and good guys were caught smoking weed together or hugging in the ring after TV cameras stopped rolling and the illusion slowly faded, it became a little harder for wrestlers to work people into believing the story. As the years passed, wrestlers' real personal lives, their contracts, what shows they worked for, who they had real-life beef with, all quickly became just as interesting, if not more, than their scripted on-TV personas.
But this is actually pretty relevant to fighting games. Well, I guess not this specifically, but there is a parallel that I'm going to draw. One of the reasons why Tekken 7 blew up in popularity compared to every other previous Tekken, which was pretty niche for the most part. Everybody knows Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, but not a lot of people know about Tekken. It would be a lot easier if you came if you had 10 random people from the internet and asked them, name as many Street Fighter characters as you can. They should be able to name like 3 probably, maybe. At least 1 for sure. People know Ryu, people know Ken, people know Chun-Li, people know Dhalsim, Guile, Cammy, There's characters that are pretty fucking famous. If you'd ask people to name Tekken characters, I think you would not be so lucky. But Tekken 7 blew up because there was a narrative between the players. The players were like there was a lot of dynamic. Then there was a lot of dynamic matchups, I guess, between Korea, Japan, and the American players, and some European players as well. And there was a lot of narrative there, so that carried the game itself as well. Whenever you had a tournament, and you knew that at launch of Tekken 7, the console launch of Tekken 7. When you knew that JDCR and Saint are going to be there, and you also knew that, for example, I don't know, who are the strongest Japanese players from back then? Nobi, and maybe some Filipino players as well, some Thai players, and you knew they were there too. You knew it's going to be a good tournament because you want to see them clash, right? Because these are the best, and they have met before, and now that the score is uneven, somebody wants a revenge, somebody was practicing, somebody got beat, somebody was learning new character to counter and all that. It was way more interesting than just another tournament. And I think that's really important, which was further accented by the introduction of the Pakistani scene for Tekken 7. But we don't need to go into all that. Pakistan completely changed the landscape of Tekken Pro fighting scene. It was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing story there. Maybe you could watch a video about Arslan Ash later at some point as well. His story is absolutely fascinating.
Fast forward to today, and the backstage real-life drama is often so much more intriguing than the presented story that the knowledge of said drama by the fans can hijack a live show, which is exactly what we saw on this evening. By this point, fans were so divided about who was the cause of the real-life lawsuit that they were taking sides, either Punk's side or the Elite's side, and it's obvious where Chicago stood on the situation.
There's also a funny fact about American wrestling. I don't know which series it is exactly. There's like AEW. There's a whole bunch. There's a bunch of stuff. I'm not aware of all of them, but there is a certain wrestling venue where oftentimes you can see people in the crowd with like with signs that are saying something about video games. Either it's about fighting games or it's about JRPGs. And I think that's kind of interesting that there's an intersection. Like, it makes sense that there's intersection between like wrestling fans and fighting game fans. That makes sense. But JRPG fans? Like, there's somebody is like, I saw a sign that said Final Fantasy X is my favorite or something, you know, or Tifa didn't deserve this or whatever, you know. It's references to like Japanese RPGs, which is I would not expect that from a wrestling audience. Maybe we'll show that too.
This is one of
It's not
many
relevant, though.
examples where the fans knowing a little too much about what goes on behind the curtain can completely derail the story, not just for one single quiet moment of your consumption of it, but live as it happens on national television.
The crowd is shaping
Imagine having your
the story.
intrusive thoughts about the show that you were watching screamed by thousands of fans in the background of that show. This is what it is to be a wrestling fan. The people are just as much a part of the show as the wrestlers themselves. If you've ever seen that excellent video Super Eyepatch Wolf dropped about Roman Reigns, or happened to watch...
I have a beef with Super Eyepatch Wolf. I will never watch any of his videos. I will not explain why right now, but I'm not a fan.
The chorus of boos that rung out at the conclusion of the 2015 Royal Rumble, when narratively they should have been cheering because technically the good guy won, you can see just how much dissonance can be created and how difficult it is to become immersed in the presented story when the fans know, or at least think they know, what's going on behind the scenes. It's hard to be worked when everyone's thoughts on how the show should be run are interrupting the show itself. And to be fair, we're talking about two separate issues here. Being distracted from the narrative by your knowledge of game design is very different from being distracted by your knowledge of the drama around a game's production. But the former happens in wrestling too. I mean, just look at these threads I pulled from r/squared circle. The conversations here are so unbelievably high level. Talk of how often finishing moves should be kicked out of to still feel like a big deal, how wrestlers should be presented, whether or not losing clean hurts the legitimacy of a wrestler, who should be given more TV time. Threads like these are the result of fans being so in the know behind the production of their preferred form of entertainment that they practically want to make it themselves and will vehemently reject the product on the product as it's unfolding if it's going in a direction that they don't feel it should be. And I just...
Man, this absolutely speaks to me when it comes to FF14. I have so many ideas where the game could go, and I think, well, for me, should go if I'm supposed to keep being interested. But I know it's not going to happen because that's not what the game is trying to do. That's not the goal of the game and the developers behind it. You know, I'm so aware of everything the game does and what I like about it and what I don't like about it and what it could do if it just did a little different here and there, and how much better would it be for me. But it's just not gonna happen, man. Shit.
Just look at this and think, there's a kid in the crowd each week who is there because he just likes Cody Rhodes. It's just that simple. And it's that simplicity that I think you lose when you consume any fiction with this higher level of comprehension. I miss when I could just play a game with the same level of wonder and blissful ignorance that I had as a child. Nostalgia hits us all differently, but maybe it's not that older games were better, that you see the past with a rose-tinted filter. Maybe it's that you didn't know any better.
I'm trying to think if I ever played a game where I didn't think about it. I guess back when I was like super little kid and playing on the Sega Mega Drive, Sonic 2 and Echo and Castlevania, the new generation, and Aladdin and what else? Battletoads. I guess I wasn't thinking about them the way I do now, but as soon as I got PC, and as soon as I started playing games like Fallout, it was over. My non-thinking days were over. That's it. It was a... I feel like if you subject a kid who's like 12, or even... I think I was like, I think I played the demo of Fallout 1 when I was like 10. I think. And even in the demo, you talk to NPCs and you gotta kind of think about what you want to do with them. How do you want to navigate this dialogue? How do you want to do the quest? Do you want to kill everybody in the village? You know? It was over. I have achieved the age of reason extremely early in my life, I feel. Because it really is like one of the earliest experiences of video games for me that were more than just arcadey fun games like on the Sega Mega Drive, which are like kind of drop in, drop out, disposable video games in a way. Games that have more persistence, like actual story. Final Fantasy VIII, that was my first Final Fantasy. I was like 10, 12 years old. Fallout 1, Planescape Torment. These games are like, these are freaking novels. They're like multiple novels in one game. It was impossible not to think about that. And that influenced everything else I have played since then. So, yeah, I would have to dig deep in my memory to remember what it's like to play something and not think about it at all. And just enjoy it. I don't know. For me, enjoying the game is thinking about it and engaging with it and learning it and experimenting and understanding it and asking it questions and letting the game ask questions of me. You know, giving me tasks to solve. Can we just agree that laugh tracks suck? What do you mean? Laugh tracks are cool. They can be used to great effect. I didn't know that MASH, one of my favorite TV shows, actually had a laugh track in the original English, the American version. I first watched it in Czech with Czech dubbing, and it doesn't have laugh track. I think it's better without the laugh track. Yeah. But I don't hate them. It doesn't really do anything for me either for or against. I don't care. It doesn't do anything for me personally.
You know, there's a beauty and a fragility to those days that we can't get back. Pro wrestling
I don't want
fans
them
are
back.
a fascinating case study, but I think they are an extreme manifestation of what a great many of us become after years of enjoying the art we love. The more we consume, the more we pursue, and the more we understand about the creation behind our favorite things. Long gone are the days where we played a game through uneducated eyes. Everyone is a game design guru now. Thanks to wonderful
Wait.
uneducated eyes. Everyone.
Tutorial level in itself already sounds lame. It's brilliant game design to teach the player the game mechanics within the game itself in a subtle manner that doesn't break immersion. It's a valid opinion on its own and doesn't need professional credentials to back it up. Yeah, sure. That sounds fine. But there's a distinct problem about tutorials and tutorial levels. It's always gonna suck because nobody wants to learn. No matter how you slice it, people just don't want to learn. So even if you make it the most natural, organic, immersive experience, people are still gonna be cognizant of, well, how does this work? Which button do I press? Can I just skip this? No. People will still do this, no matter how you do it. It doesn't matter. And that's why I will always advocate that you need to approach every new game as a new game, and you need to be it is imperative for you to be curious. That's what I'm trying to say. You have to be curious, and you have to want to learn. That's the thing. You have to want to learn. Otherwise, because if you do, which is my case, at least I try to do this, even if the tutorial is complete garbaggio, you will still get what you need out of it. You will still learn how to play the game, and you're gonna have a better time for it. But if you just, I already made my point.
Is a game design guru now. Thanks to wonderful channels like these, everyone is a
Daryl got my back.
game design guru now. Thanks to
Core A Gaming. Man, we haven't seen a video from Core A Gaming for a whole year. I pray to Umbasa to get a new video at some point. We also haven't had a new video from Tim Rogers. I really hope that he can finish up that. He should be doing a Final Fantasy IV review. And man, that's gonna be good.
To wonderful channels like these, the literacy for game development is better. The literacy behind story
Icky Jicky's
structure
pretty
and
funny.
character development and cinematography is better. And none of these things are inherently bad, but a strange consequence of them is that sometimes the how it's made distracts from what is made. With that literacy under your belt, you can't unsee things like how certain items are painted in order to make it obvious to the player what items are interactable so that they don't meander around trying to break everything. You can't avoid how predictable certain narratives become because you are way too quick to pick up on foreshadowing. You can't really believe that Dr. House isn't any real danger in this scene because he's the main character. They simply cannot kill him off his own.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Like, when I was questing in Warcraft, and anybody at any time said, "We must do this, otherwise something bad will happen," I was like, "Man, this is a side quest. Nothing's bad gonna happen. Come on." And then, I mean, yeah, maybe some NPC dies, but like, wham. I was actually immersed in some of the side quests. The side quests are good. Actually, you know, I wanna give credit to Warcraft Dragonflight. Some of the side quests are actually really nice and wholesome and tragic or funny. It's really good, but still, if they say they must not claim this knowledge, otherwise they will wreak havoc upon Azeroth, I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure we're gonna be fine. If you see friends send you Core A, hell yeah. It's always unfortunate when you see a streamer and like the game is not clicking for them at all, like they're pushing them through the game for the audience. Yeah.
Own show in the middle of the season. You can't fully enjoy a wrestling match without trying to figure out how they let this guy lose without making him look weak, because there's no way they're letting the championship change hands on the weekly show and not on a pay-per-view. And I think it's for those reasons that the media that really captures our imagination these days are the ones that don't rely on our established understanding.
This is a good game. Prey? Holy shit. That intro sequence, that actually did blow my mind a little bit, because I did not see that coming. I was thinking something was fishy, but I couldn't quite put my finger in it, and then when I could, I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then the game begins. This is a good-ass game.
Understanding, and in fact, use that against us. Meta-narratives in gaming take over the internet because we haven't seen this movie before. In Undertale, we assume we know what these figures mean. In One Shot, we assume that we can just close the game like we can close any other game. In Control, we assume we know how credits and bad endings work. In Doki Doki, we assume that it's a certain genre, when in fact,
Daryl is hitting it on the goddamn head. Because what I always say is these days, like I have already played all the best games that were made. It's done. It's finished. There will never be a game that's better than what I've already played. And that's not because the games are not better, but that's because my experience is not going to be better than what it used to be. The heights already they have come and gone. That's fine. That is fine. What I appreciate about a video game, or a movie for that matter, is whenever they manage to surprise me in some way. That is why Evil Within 1 is a completely amazing fucking third-person horror shooter, because that game is designed to surprise you every fucking 5 minutes. And it does. And it's incredible. Evil Within 2 tries to do that, but it doesn't have quite the same pedigree. Shinji Mikami didn't even work on that game to the same capacity that he did in Evil Within 1. So I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons for that. But yeah, surprise is the most important aspect for me if I'm supposed to be, if the game is supposed to be remarkable for me and stay in my memory after I'm done playing it. It is not the only one, but it is probably the most important one.
One of these days, I'm gonna stop milking this game for examples. In the Stanley
The
Parable,
element of surprise.
I don't even know where to start with this one. And it's not just meta-narratives. I made an entire video about how I genuinely could not enjoy Outer Wilds until I stopped viewing it with video game literacy glasses. The title Outer Wilds is not a video game was not meant as disrespect, it was meant as a compliment because it completely forces you to stop relying on what you think you know about video games to progress and
I keep hearing about this game, how insane and awesome it is, and it looks like it just completely would not appeal to me at all. This is gonna be a game that I will forever respect for what it's trying to do, but I will never in my life play it. There's no chance. Zero chance.
enjoy it. I had never seen anything quite like it before. I briefly mentioned this in the backlog video, but Hellblade's ending also breaks an assumption that you have about final bosses in video games to make its point, and I will never forget that one. So many times we aren't fooled for a second that a main character isn't in any real danger when their peril is threatened. But any confidence we had that the same plot armor existed in Game of Thrones is completely tossed out within the first few seasons. If this show threatened to kill someone off, you believed it because it showed you that no one was safe, which not only kept people historically invested, it hurt people. It hurt people bad. I'm going through the same thing with Jujutsu Kaisen right now.
Wait, what is this?
People.
Nobody watch Game of Thrones. It's horrible and it will make your soul crush into pieces and you'll be forever crying. And I was told all my life, don't play so many video games. You will not be able to discern what is real and what isn't. I was told that. Check out normies watching their first somewhat decent TV show ever. Jesus Christ.
Well, bad. I'm going through the same thing with Jujutsu Kaisen right now. This is why stories that take risks work, because they inherently subvert what we think we know about what writers and developers are doing. It's what makes pro wrestling such a uniquely fascinating form of entertainment, because it can do this shit in real time. Writers can, on the fly, realize that the real-life drama has captured everyone's attention and then turn that controversy into a part of the on-screen fictional narrative. Here is a segment where MJF speaks on national TV, but he isn't addressing the wrestler that he's going to fight next week as part of the show. He's talking directly to his boss, Tony Khan, about how poorly he feels he's been treated as a talent and how underpaid he feels he is.
Don't ask him to reach into his pockets and pay the man who's been busting his ass for him since day one. Make sure he hoards all that money so he can give it to all the new ex-WWE guys he keeps bringing in.
So, if you're a fan that is aware of the real-world controversy, you watch this and think, wait, is this for real? What exactly am I watching right now? Is this a work?
Watching history.
Or a shoot? Especially after they cut his mic and don't acknowledge his existence after they come back from commercial or for weeks afterwards. Wrestling can immerse you by taking what has broken your immersion and then making it a part of the story. It would be like if you hesitantly booted up Hogwarts Legacy and then one of the characters just turned to the camera and started bashing J.K. Rowling for her horrendous behavior and how they're just disgusted that they have to be in this game now. And then,
why couldn't I be NPC in Baldur's Gate? That's pretty good.
That initiated a side quest revolving around the controversy. I almost had a stroke trying to write that because no other form of...
What he just described with this NPC breaking the fourth wall and talking about real life issues, however real they may be, that is exactly the kind of thing that I would expect from Yoko Taro and his games, like Nier and Drakengard. He could pull that off easy, and it would be like totally on brand.
Media can do this quite like pro wrestling can. It is extremely tough to take that distracting conversation about a narrative and weave it into the narrative. But
Steam
it
reviews.
is most certainly one way to resuspend your disbelief. So what do we make of all this? Because as much as I have taken the time to carefully articulate all of the ways our knowledge of how the sausage is made can distract us from enjoying the sausage, I still don't have a fix to my problem. Not every form of media is going to be that brilliant or innovative or brutal, and there will always be stories that are just sort of standard, that do enough to make you feel something without actively trying to throw you off what you think you know about its structure, and that is absolutely not a bad thing. The reason
That's also
this
most
whole
stories, I would
immersion-breaking
imagine.
analysis conundrum is an issue for me personally might be because I'm a YouTuber. It might be because I'm a
Okay, Meta,
analysis
tell
conundrum
me,
is an issue for me personally. Might be because
is Daryl, does he look similar to you, or like, does he look like somebody who could be related to you? Because I remember seeing a picture of you some time ago, and I feel like it was pretty close, but I might be wrong. I don't know. You tell me. Just let me enjoy the sausage. I don't care how it's made. I love the shirt, man. The shirt. Man. I could see him being a brown-haired, buffer version of me. Okay. Yeah.
because I'm a YouTuber. It might be because I'm
He
a
looks pretty
wrestling
good.
fan. It might be because I'm both. And I didn't want to make the video all about this because it would have been such a drag to write about. But I think nowadays, with so many complex opinions about media circling around, a great
Husband
many
gold
of us
thumbnail.
both feel like it's normal to consume media on this higher level and feel as though we should be contributing to the conversation on a higher level.
I think the first part, that's fine. Well, I don't know if it's fine. I'm gonna have to think about this. We feel like it's normal to consume media at this higher level. I think this is very interesting because I never thought about this. Actually, never thought about this because I would naturally surround myself with people who want to think about things that they do and they consume. So in such environment, it's definitely normal and expected and desired. But I feel like that's definitely not the norm overall in society, right? But maybe it is. Maybe, or at least it's more common than I would expect necessarily. However, the second part, we feel as though we should be contributing to the conversation on a higher level. I wish people felt the need to contribute on a higher level. I think the problem is that people feel the need to contribute. That's where it ends. They don't think about higher level. They don't think about nuance. They don't think about deeper appreciation and analysis. They just want to be part of the club. They want to belong somewhere. So when somebody says FF13 sucks because it's a tunnel simulator and it's linear as fuck, which is pretty fucking similar to FF7 Remake or FF10, you just go to Twitter and say, yo, FF13 sucks, am I right? And somebody else is gonna be, who also didn't play it, yeah, man, it's a tunnel simulator. And suddenly you have a friend. Sort of. Kinda, maybe. It feels like it. Somebody agrees with you. That feels pretty good. Yeah. If people actually start contributing on a higher level, more commonly and in general, that would be nice. But also, who has the time to actually read everybody's educated opinion on something? Do we need that? I don't think so. I think you can just like. I think it's perfectly fine to just like something for no reason at all. That's why I sometimes like to say that I'm not sure if this game is good or bad, but I like it. And that's it. That's all that matters. And I usually just end up also thinking about it. Why is it that I like it? So I can always justify it, but when somebody else tells me, okay, so wait, so you like this game? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. Like, why? I don't know. I just vibe with it. That's completely acceptable answer for me. I don't need any further details. I think that's a completely valid and sufficient, not just valid, but sufficient reason for that conclusion.
The reason there are so many shit takes and what's an opinion that'll on a higher
See,
level.
this is it.
The reason
Games today are more interactive movie than actual games. Yeah. Easy, not ambitious enough. Linear, not enough customization. Story was leading into something and ended doing its own thing. Really not the worst Final Fantasy, it's better than FF13 and FF15, but that is not something to be too proud of. Exhibit A, my honor. That is it. Or your honor, actually. Exhibit A, your honor. Sorry, I'm not super familiar with court language, but this is exactly the kind of guy I'm talking about. This little shithead. It's better than FF13 and 15, but that's not something to be too proud of. This guy has no idea what 13 and 15 is about. Okay, you probably did play it, but I'm pretty sure he didn't finish it. Either of those two games. I'm pretty sure they're talking about 16. And this is really a typical Twitter dunk that has absolutely no substance. You're just saying things to gather impressions and likes. That's all this is. At least that's my view of this kind of opinion.
And there are so many shit takes, and what's an opinion that'll have you like this?
Honestly, it's often difficult to pin down what parts of a game that you don't like, so just saying you just like it makes sense. Yeah, especially if you want to like be concise about it. It's definitely easier for me. It's a lot more acceptable to just say I like it and that's it. If you say it's bad, I don't like it, I would like to hear some justification or some explanation why that is. But if you do like it, then that's kind of enough for me. This is an interesting bias, and it is a bias, and I'm kind of wondering why that is. What's your gaming opinion that will have you like this against everyone?
This thread's floating around is because so damn many of us now are just, frankly, fiction snobs. It's not enough
Fiction
to just
snobs.
like something anymore. You have to be able to defend it in the, but is it
You have to be able to defend it.
actually good conversation, in the where does it rank conversation?
Yeah, I think I talked about this earlier in the stream. Like, one of the reasons why I want to stream on Twitch and stuff, and why I want to try to build a community of some kind, is that I want to enjoy stuff. I want to like things and look for the good in everything, including stuff that's probably not that great or even bad. And I also think this is related to what Daryl's talking about. I think it would be nice if you didn't have to defend why is something good, or why you think something is good, or why you like something. Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to defend it? And that's what I just said, right? When you say you like something, I don't need to hear reason why. Because your enjoyment is enough. That's it. That's enough. But if you don't like it, you better have some good reason why you don't like it. I wonder what this is. Liking something and it being good are two different things, for sure. That's true. That's also why I usually, whenever somebody asks me, like, is this good? Like, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what your values are. I don't know what you think is good. So I can only tell you that I like it or dislike it, and that's it. I can tell you why I like it. I can tell you why I dislike it, but I can't tell you if it's good. You're gonna have to play it yourself to find out, because I can't answer that for you. There are objective metrics, sure, but those are usually pretty useless. Or, well, if a game runs like shit, if it's like sub 20 FPS and it just doesn't run properly on a console, if it looks like shit, if it loads 90 seconds every time you die, those are bad things, but it doesn't make a bad game, right? So that's still just one part of a greater whole. So the objective metrics are also subject to everybody's values still, because like I can say, well, Bravely Default 2 on Switch, I wouldn't recommend it because it kind of sucks on the Switch because it stutters, the performance is bad, and you're tied to the low resolution and all that. Somebody might not give a single fuck about any of those things, and they would love the game, right? So these objective metrics are fucking useless. Shit.
In the, but does it hold up conversation? And I don't want to.
Does it hold up? No, that's. I am definitely guilty of that. Monster Hunter World was definitely not my thing, but it has the right things to keep people coming back, and who am I to argue with that being good? Yeah, Hollow Knight for me, like I see what Hollow Knight is doing, and I just see, okay, that I don't want to do this, but it's good. I just don't want to do this personally. It's the best game that I don't like and don't want to play.
demonize this flow of thought. People have these discussions because they're fun. Hell, it's part of the reason I stay in business, but
Yeah, talking shit is fun. That's the problem.
again, a strange byproduct of it is that sometimes I think
People could at least try to be funny when they talk shit. That I can respect. If you say FF13 Tunnel Simulator Herder, no, that's not funny. But if you say something funny about the characters, how they behave, how they react to each other, or something, and it's like in the form of talking shit, that means that you, for one, understand what the game was doing. You probably played it, so I will be much more tolerant and appreciative of that opinion or the joke or the shit talking. And also, if it's funny, I can laugh at it. I know what I like. I know why I like it. If you say it's bad and you make a joke about how is it bad, in what way, and it's funny, I'm gonna laugh at it, because there's gonna be a kernel of truth as well, because I know what's going on here. My life has improved since I remembered that video games can just be played without being critically analyzed.
think a lot of us struggle to just play, watch, and enjoy without doing anything more than that. I miss the simplicity that comes with liking something because you like it. All that to say, I still have no clue how to fix this. There was no psych study I found that showed that you could just unknow what.
The whole time we've been watching this video, I was thinking, well, I mean, these are all very interesting things to think about, but I don't think there is really a problem here. And if it's a problem, then I don't know how to solve this, and I don't even know if it needs solving. So it's a very strange topic, and I'm glad that he's coming to the same conclusion.
You know, so that what you know is less distracting.
Because he thought about this way more than I did.
When you're trying to stay immersed. But if this is a problem for you, I do think that it might be at least a little helpful to just not give a damn what other people think should be happening in a narrative, to contribute to these conversations a little less, and to remember that the art you...
One of my favorite things to do on Twitter and comment sections is reading them, getting an idea what people are saying, what people are thinking, like get the general vibe of the zeitgeist, and not adding anything to it. You ever try that? You read some stuff is like, yeah, that makes sense, I agree. Some stuff is like, what the fuck is this guy smoking? Some stuff is like, dude, this is bullshit. How can he say this? This is patently false. This is not even true. And then you don't say anything. You don't reply. You don't make a tweet. You don't post any. You just don't say anything. Or you open up the text box, you write some opinion or some reply, and then you delete it and you carry on with your day. It's so good. It's so amazing. I think more people should try this.
like best is best because it's not a competition and you don't have to show your work when you think something is profound.
Just because we can add to discussion doesn't mean we should or
Hey
have
everybody, how you doing? Daryl here. Just wanted to pop in at the end of the year on the last video. I always like to just sort of come on real quick and say thank you so much for making this job so much fun. It's been 6 years now. This is the 6th year of me doing this, and I'm just very excited.
Video is from December 16th, 2023.
To number 1, be done with the backlog. Number 2, be at 500,000 subscribers. And number 3,
Here's the video.
finally have a break. I'm tired. I'm ready to drink some eggnog and hang out and be with the
Eggnog.
family. And I hope that
I
you're
could-
excited
I could
the
go for
same.
some
I hope that
eggnog.
You have a fantastic holiday season. And again, I just want to thank you so much for watching the videos this year, for being here, for commenting, do all the things that you do. You guys are simply the best, and I really thank you so much for making this so much fun for me, because I truly enjoy doing this, even if I am very tired right now. As always, if you like what you see here, I do have a Patreon that you can feel free to go.
That's
and
a lot of
support.
supporters,
Lots
man.
of bonus content. I do some very
Deserves
small,
every
cozy streams
bit
there.
of it.
I also do blooper reels and some other weekly input, creative input, things like that. Voting for thumbnails, it's all there. You also get to see your name. There should be names. you might get to be on
Soy.
the screen. You
Cool-
also might
cool
be a
name.
featured patron. This month's featured patrons, everybody. Give it up for Spunky Siren, Inno, Chris22, Mal_K. We have J Hamilton Roque. Did I say that right? J Hamilton Roque.
I was thinking, what is the music? It's freaking Zelda.
And
It's a nice arrange.
Thanks, Deborah.
Nice cover.
But yeah, that's gonna be it for me, guys. Just want to say thank you again so much. 6 years, it's been incredible. Here's
I need to watch
12,
this
Here's to 1 million.
at
You
some
guys
point.
Are simply the best. So, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. Just enjoy that shit. And as always, have yourself a damn good one.
A damn good one. Enjoy that shit. Enjoy Hanukkah and all that shit.